Let me get in focus. Hi there. My name is Tristan. My mama has asked me to come here to grate some cheese. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna grate some cheese today. And I'm gonna invite you to be here with me as I grate some cheese. And we're gonna kind of have like a, what would you call it? Like a zen moment. A zen in the art of grating cheese. So let's figure it out. Hello there. My name is Tristan. Welcome to what I am titling Zen and the Art of Grating Cheese. There might not be much zen about this. This is just gonna be me having a conversation with this camera. But I am here. I am going to be grating this cheese. We're gonna be talking about things such as enchantment and I don't know, I'm gonna be rambling off. So let's get into this and let's have some fun. Okay, so I believe I'm just gonna do a voiceover for this to make it a bit more clear. I am outside right now, so we'll see how this goes. But I first want to introduce the cheese we are using. It is just this sharp cheddar from the Fresh Time Market. My parents love their Fresh Time, and I love them for it because they're eating whole foods. I've gotten them into organic foods. I'm like, yes, Mama, yes, Papa. Get it going, nourish your bodies, make sure you're doing good. Okay. With that said, what are we going to talk about today? I called this Zen and the Art of cheese grating. With the theme of cheese grating, I kind of get like maybe sacral a little bit. It's orange, and I heard dairy goes along with the sacral a lot. But more specifically, this has to do with maybe like kind of youthfulness and inner childness. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Specifically enchantment and fantasy and imagination and all the sorts of things like that. I have recently picked up a book, and it's called As If. I believe it was written by Michael Saylor, who is a professor from a school somewhere in California. I'm not 100% sure where in California, but he is a professor, and he kind of talks about the literary origins of virtual worlds, or how we today see virtual worlds as primarily in like video games and the such, or like other virtual experiences, since virtual reality is becoming a thing. I'm gonna end that there. But he talks about how a lot of these literary worlds, such as the works of Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth, Lovecraft, his mythos, even Sherlock Holmes, all of these are the first times the public were introduced to alternate realities at which they could kind of escape into, or that kind of rivaled but also were heavily influenced by the worlds we live in today. And I haven't been comprehending it entirely too much, to be honest, because my mind's been a bit squirrely. I've kind of been in my own little virtual world, my own little Plato's cave. Regardless, I have thoroughly enjoyed the book. I'm almost complete with it. I'm kind of in the final chapter that's all about Tolkien. And he really does a deep dive on each of these authors because he believes that each of them, their backgrounds heavily influenced their work. But back on the topic of imagination and enchantment and everything like that, I wanted to just get to the core of the issue, I guess you could say. And it's as we get older, how do we maintain our imagination? Because in the past year, I feel like my imagination spiked, and then like at the moment it's like drained. Very, very drained, as if a vampire latched on to my brain and sucked out all my youthful juices. And I'm here just like, how do I get them back? Because they're there. They're here. What's funny is they actually feel beneath me. But it's like they're not strong enough to hold the weight of in Steiner terms, this ahrimanic reality of getting older and having to do taxes and all the sorts of things we have to do with reality. And how do we find enchantment in our life? Like when you feel soulless, when you feel lifeless, like how do you maintain that poetic reality of feeling, or when you just don't feel anymore? How do you find it? Like what do you do to re-find yourself in reality, or find that inner world and maintain that inner world and prevent it from continually becoming crushed by the ever approaching responsibilities of material life. And the book kind of talks about how these stories, these virtual worlds the public interacts with is ways we do that, is ways at which we maintain this aspect of ourselves, this youthfulness, this imagination. I actually got a book. I think it was like Gary Lockman. He was in Blondie, but he has written a lot on esoteric topics and the like. But he wrote a fantastic book I absolutely adored on imagination and the importance of in an ever-progressing world that is so much more technological and rigid and by the numbers and with AI and everything like that like holding true to that feminine, that imagination in our life is going to be so important. And how do we honor that? And it can be hard to develop that the older you get. So for me, I heavily experimented and unfolded my feminine. I just kind of wasn't also at the same time nurturing my masculine that could fully support the feminine pillar. So she kind of oftentimes can go in a like crazy witch route, if you know what I mean. If anyone's been there, especially if you've done some deep spiritual work or shadow work, it can really get out of hand. And I have noticed that within my own life. So I don't know if I'm making many points with this, but I'm just like opening up a huge conversation about how do we maintain this? Like, how do we grow old yet not lose our youthfulness? How do we find play that isn't strictly like playing a computer game? And I guess it's just be receptive to it, but what if you're just not? What if you're not receptive to it? And maybe that's just what you have a conversation about. The same way like a child is maybe hesitant to go play with the other kids. You have to ask them, like, instead of like forcing them and throwing them in, just have a conversation with them and say, hey, what's up, kiddo? And like, I want you to tell me the full truth, because sometimes there might be information that can really give you the answer. And as I work through this myself, I feel like I'm arriving to some conclusions as to why I have felt so stuck, why I have felt so rigid, why I have felt so like weird and odd and just detached from my own youthfulness, even though I'll like play with things that remind me of my childhood, like video games and movies, but inner child is more than video games and more than movies. Like they had an imagination. My inner child loved to go outside and experiment, and it's just like I'm always so exhausted that it's like I can't play with him. And it's like, I'm sorry, kiddo, I'm tired. I want to go play with you. I want to go have fun. I'm tired. Like I have a fatigue on me all the time. And resting seems to just make that fatigue grow. Makes it so much heavier at times. So it's like I'm trying to figure out what I can do for myself and not have to rely on the Ahrimanic doctors and their little tools to tell me what to do. Sorry, I'm quoting the Ahriman a lot, but I guess that's a big fear of mine, is forgetting my soul, forgetting spirit, forgetting the truth that we live in a magical reality, that magic is real. It's very real. And just because it's chaotic at times, and just because it doesn't make sense at times, doesn't make it any less real. With that said, sometimes our inner child might need us to be an adult before they can play, before they feel safe enough to play. Is that they need you to just be an adult. So maybe with the end of me shredding this cheese, it's me coming to the conclusion that sometimes the best thing you can do to preserve your youth is to be an adult. Because when you're not a kid anymore, and if you're into inner parts or family systems, then what the inner child needs, what that part of you needs, is a parent. The inner child can no longer be steering the ship, or they'll hurt themselves. And that's where I'm at. That's the answer to my biggest question, is how do we preserve our youthfulness as we have to get older? And it's kind of like just accepting the natural flow of getting old, which is that you're an adult and you have to work, and being like, okay, I will be an adult and I will work, and let the inner child come knocking on your door, or knock on theirs sometimes and say, hey, what's up? And slowly and surely they might feel safe enough to come out and play. Okay, that was the end. We're all done. I hope you enjoyed Zen and the art of cheese grating. It wasn't very Zen, it was more about like childhood things, wasn't it? That was fun. But we're done for now. So I hope you had a great day. I hope you enjoyed this. Sayonara. It might not have been the most exciting thing in the world, but hopefully my voice was soothing for you. Have an awesome day. I love you. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Peace.